Hey guys, Randy here with the Gateway to Heroes podcast, and these are my reading recommendations for the week. I don't have a lot this week. My pull was only 5 books, but I am going to revisit one from last week as well. Also, show you something kind of cool that I remembered that I had, so I pulled it out of my long box to share with you. Want to give shout out to Enos L. Nickens, my friend and co-host on the podcast, who every week does his Big Nick's picks here on our group page for the podcast. This week he is actually doing a special tribute to Kevin Conroy, who of course was the voice of Batman on so many of those DC animated series and movies. Also, shout out to Eddie Nieves and his YouTube channel, Eddie From the Batcave, who's also posting here every week as well. Thank you guys both very much. Go ahead and just jump into it here. Um, from Dark Horse Comics, written by Tom King with art by Bilquis Evely, Helen of Windhorn, number 6. I was really enjoying this series up until this issue, only because the ending felt rushed. It almost felt like Tom King either got tired of writing it or the delays in the publishing, because there was some delays, I think, between issues 4 and 5 and issues 5 and 6, just had him maybe end the series early because it felt like there was some unfinished business. Okay. I'm hoping that there's maybe going to be another series that'll pick up where this left off and continue the story. But the art is fantastic. We have a really great splash page here of this ship that Helen and her grandfather Barnabas are traveling on. And then later on, there is a scene with Barnabas and this woman called the Witch of the Caves, who we find out is actually Helen's grandmother. And then beautiful scene here of Helen and her grandfather back at Windhorn Estate, where Helen ends up spending the rest of her life after her father has passed away in issue 1. Okay, but again, really liked the story up until here. It just felt like it was a bit rushed. Okay, by Marvel Comics, Amazing Spider-Man number 61. This is part 1 of the 8 deaths of Spider-Man, and I'm kind of with Eddie Nieves on this one, in that the storyline was just so. I wasn't really feeling it. It's written by Joe Kelly. We do get art by Ed McGuinness, which I'm not going to lie, I'm glad that we have him on art now. Look at that great page there with Doctor Doom and Spider-Man, which, by the way, if you didn't read the Blood Hunt storyline over at Marvel, Doctor Doom is now the Sorcerer Supreme. And he comes to Spider-Man telling him that he has need of his services. And we get a lot of exposition here. We get a whole 4 pages of story setting up this entire challenge that's coming up that the Sorcerer Supreme, aka Doctor Doom, now needs Spider-Man's help with. The reason this story just kind of is only so for me is there really not another champion of Earth that the Sorcerer Supreme could have picked other than Spider-Man? I'm sure there's plenty of other magic-based superheroes that would have been better suited for this. It feels kind of like Spider-Man is shoehorned into this, right? So that's my take on it. All right. Up next, by DC Comics, Absolute Batman number 2. Now, this is the Raphael Albuquerque cardstock cover. Again, DC has the regular cover on the inside here, written by Scott Snyder with art by Nick Dracota. Excuse me for just a moment. I will tell you that I still like Absolute Superman and Absolute Wonder Woman better, but issue 2 here was a bit of an improvement over the first one. There is a card game that Eddie Nieves mentioned in the story. Eddie, just so you know, if you go back and look at issue 1, it was established in issue 1 that Bruce was friends with those people at the card game, okay? So that kind of wasn't a surprise, at least for me. I do have a nit to pick here, okay? This is supposed to be a darker, grittier Batman. No mansion, no fortune, right? He's not supposed to be rich. If that's the case, where does he get this big ass Batmobile? Okay, look at the size of these guys compared to this Batmobile. All right, if you are not rich, last time I looked, a Batmobile of this size required a lot of money. How does he afford it? I do like that we get the first appearance of the Absolute Universe Selena Kyle here at the end, as well as what appears to be another person off camera, or that we only get to see a profile of talking to Selena. But again, where does he get the money to afford that Batmobile? All right. Also, if I failed to mention, and I might have, sorry, I got this cardstock cover because Absolute Superman and Absolute Wonder Woman, the next issues are going to tie into it. It's going to be a triple cover, okay? All right, also from DC, Action Comics 1075. Action is still on that weekly schedule, so this is part 6 of the Phantoms storyline by Mark Waid with art by Clayton Henry and Michael Shelfer. It is also part 6 of the Supergirl backup story by Mariko Tamaki and Skylar Patridge on art. There's also apparently another story called Memory Lane that's taking place. This is an oversized anniversary issue, so it's a $6 book. Haven't read this issue yet, but I've really been liking what Mark Waid has done with it so far, so I'm sure I'm not going to be disappointed. By Distillery, Book 3 of Life, written by Brian Azzarello with art by Stephanie Phillips. And if you remember me telling you before, this is actually a flip book. The first part is written from the angle of what they call the prose, with the second part of the story being told by the Khans. And if you're not reading this, the Khans have been on this planet for generations before the other party that comes there. So it's the same story told from different viewpoints. I'm really hoping that when the story wraps, it's going to combine into one story. So really like what Distillery is doing. Haven't read this yet. Don't think I'll be disappointed. But getting back to Distillery, last week I mentioned I picked up issue 1 of One for Sorrow, written, illustrated, and colored by Jamie McKelvey. And this takes place around Victorian England, so 1900 time frame. It has a couple of stories going on. We have what basically is a Jack the Ripper type serial killer hanging out, as well as a medium in the book as well who's holding seances that can communicate with the dead. One of the things that I do love about Distillery is their oversized format allows to have some really large pages of art here, and Jamie McKelvey's art is just fantastic on this. If you didn't pick up One for Sorrow, just came out last week. It is probably still in your shop. Go get it. It has a really nice ending, kind of a bit of a twist. And with Distillery, there is a little bit of a horror element in a lot of their books, so you should be prepared for that coming at the end, right? It's not scary, but there's a little twist there that you'll like, okay? Now, for the surprise, you guys will think this is pretty cool. I kind of thought this was cool when I first found it years ago. I have here Batman Family number 13, okay? Obviously from 1970 something, because it's even advertising right here that you could be in the Superman movie, okay? The giant size issue, and it's 60 cents, okay? 60 cents over here. Sorry. I just realized this Mylar is split. I'm going to have to replace this Mylar, all right? But let me show you what's really cool in here, okay? In the back of this issue, there was a thing called Robin's New Look, where it featured artwork submitted by fans to come up with a new look for Robin. And look here. Look at that name. Norm Brayfogle was one of the fan artists, who submitted a new look for Batman. Norm Brayfogle, of course, years later will become a regular artist on Detective drawing Batman. Isn't that amazing? I thought that was pretty cool years ago when I found it. I thought about it the other day, said, I got to dig that up and show it off. And now I have to replace this Mylar. It's actually good that I pulled this out because I didn't know it was split, which means it's not doing me any good, right? Okay, so that is my pulls for the week. I will be back next week with my pulls. Maybe throw a couple more surprises in there. As always, you can reach us at gatewayheroespodcast@gmail.com, as well as show us a little support at patreon.com/gatewaytoheroespodcast. I will see you guys next week.